All right, now we're going to talk through how to write the name of a type 2. All right, so type 2s are basically just like type 1s. It's just the fact that now the element starts with a metal instead, well, it still starts with a metal, but you do not know the charge of that metal. So we have to use our special names like, rather the Roman numeral, or we have to use things like polymbic or ferric or things like that. So again, name the first element, name the second, then we're going to have to put in a Roman numeral, or we're going to have to use those special cation names. So, like I said, polymbic, ferric, things like that. So we'll go through some examples of how to do the type 2s. Okay. So, all right, so the first one we have is Fe2O3. And there are some tricks with this one, too, that we need to talk about. All right, so Fe, we know that's iron. Iron is one that obviously is not in the ones that we know the charge of. So we say, okay, we have iron, and then O is oxygen, which becomes oxide. Now, iron, we don't know the charge of. So I come over here and I say, okay, iron, we have to figure out what the charge of iron is before I can figure out, is it ferric or is it ferrous? So what I do is I take the 2 that is here, cross it back up. I take the 3 that's here, cross it back up. So this is a 3, this is a 2. Now, before I can officially say that, hey, right up here, there's a 3. So the iron is a 3. I have to check it. Because remember that when we wrote formulas, we reduced numbers. So that could technically be a 6 or something if I reduced. So how do I check and make sure? Well, I go over and I look and I say, okay, is oxygen a 2? Is that number a 2? Is that what it is when I look it up? I always check my anions. Well, oxygen is a 2. So I'm good. So if oxygen is the correct number, then that means that the iron is the correct number. So that means the iron is a 3. So I would look up iron 3, right? Because technically this is Roman numeral 3, but we would never write it that way. So I'd look up, or I should know what iron 3 is. I know that that is ferric. So ferric oxide. Okay. All right. And okay, so there's that one. Okay, the next one, Pb, we know that's lead. I don't know the charge of lead. I have chlorine, which becomes chloride. So I know that technically lead needs a Roman numeral. I have to figure out what it is, and lead actually has a special name, right? It's rather Polumbus or Polumbic. So to figure out what that is, so the 4 goes down here, the 1 goes up here. So let's see. So 4, 1, again, check. Does chlorine make a 1? Yes. Makes a 1, so that means oops. I don't know what happened there, sorry. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Okay, let's try this again. Sorry. Okay, so we were at lead, Roman numeral, chloride. All right, and then so that was 4 goes up there, the 1 goes up there, and we said 1, and we said 4, and we were checking to say, okay, does chlorine make a 1? And we said, yes, chlorine does make a 1, so that means the lead is a 4, so we're good. So it would technically be a Roman numeral 4, but we know that 4 is not what we're going to use. We're going to use stannic and chloride. Okay. All right. Alrighty. And so there's that. And then, okay, so let's try the next one then. So again, copper, Chloride. Needs a Roman numeral, right? Technically. So 1 and 1. 1 and 1. Chlorine makes a 1. We just checked that, yes. So it's copper 1. Copper 1, though, is actually cuprous. Chloride. Okay. Now, here's the one I wanted to show you. So you have uranium. So here's a different one in two ways. Uranium does not have a special name, right? So it's going to need a Roman numeral. So I don't know why I didn't just write that on the blank. So in fact, I'm going to erase. Okay. So this one we're actually going to have a Roman numeral in the answer because it doesn't have a special name. And this is one why it's so important to actually check your answers. So look at this. So I go and I uncross them and put the numbers up here. And they appear to both be 1s, right? Now look though. Oxygen appears to be a 1. Does oxygen make a 1 though? No. Oxygen, when I look it up on the periodic table, is a 2. So that means that this was reduced. They were both divided by 2 before we wrote the formula. So that means I need to multiply this side by 2. So I need to multiply this side by 2. So uranium is actually a 2. So the Roman numeral that needs to go in this spot is actually 2, not a 1. So that's why it's so important that we check them and not just write down whatever we think it, like whatever initially uncrosses to be. The next one is another one just like that. Manganese. Okay. Roman numeral. Again, it needs a Roman numeral, not a special name. Oxide again. Oops. So we uncross them. The 2 comes up here. That goes up there. So 1 and 2. You look at it again. Oxygen doesn't make a 1, right? It makes a 2. So that's actually a 2. Okay, which means that this over here is not a 2. We have to multiply it by 2, so that's actually a 4. So manganese should actually have a Roman numeral of 4. Okay, so those are your type 2s.